This is the pharmacy exhibit at the North Carolina Museum of History. We built this facade to kind of emulate what you might see in a 1920s era pharmacy. The sign is actually a replica of a sign that was on Fayetteville Street in the 1920s. Hi, I'm John Campbell, the collections manager here at the North Carolina Museum of History. Today I'm going to give you a tour of this recreated 1920s pharmacy. In the late 1980s, a group of pharmacists got together, and they were all retired, and they wanted to create an exhibit on pharmacy at the Museum of History. So they started collecting all kinds of pharmacy things from the teens all the way up to the 1960s. There was also John C. Brantley, a retired pharmacist who had an entire pharmacy. So what you see in this room, all the things that would, the cabinetry, the soda fountain, all came from one pharmacy in Raleigh, North Carolina. But many of the things in the cases came from all over the state. So we wanted to recreate what would a 1920s pharmacy look like and feel like. One thing I want to say is our recreation is wider than any 1920s pharmacy would ever have been. But we chose to do that so we could get school groups in here. In the pharmacy, we set up a whole lot of cases to kind of give you a flavor of the types of things that would have been on sale in a 1920s pharmacy. What's interesting is to look at how things have changed. This case is a humidor, which has all types of cigars and cigarettes. So this case, we're featuring some items that would be interesting to men, such as combs and brushes, pocket knives, shoe horns. So you would need that to help pull the shoe on. More useful then, maybe not so much now. Maybe our shoes are looser, we're not sure. One thing that's very interesting is razors. Many men were still using a straight razor. So those you would need to buy soap so you could lather up and then use a straight razor to take the beard off. We have some leather straps, which is how you would sharpen the blade on your razor. Most people don't do that now. They use a handheld razor or a safety razor. So in this case, there's a lot of women's products, lipsticks, different kinds of makeup and things like that. Very similar to what you would buy in today's pharmacy. Probably the packaging looks a little different, maybe the aesthetics of how they're doing it, but very similar. Behind me, there's candy boxes, cameras. This is kind of interesting. This is packages as they might be ready to go, like perhaps someone put an order in and then came later to pick it up. In this case, there's an assortment of combs, brushes, mirrors, some styling products for hair, a wide assortment. So in this case, we have a lot of different writing implements. We have pens, we have ink wells. All these types of things would have been for sale, especially writing implements, because the way you talk to people was writing letters there weren't emails yet. So the cabinet behind me contains a whole lot of over-the-counter products that you would go to the pharmacy to buy, and you wouldn't need a prescription so much for. But some of those things in today's market wouldn't be acceptable. Digestives, laxatives, diuretics. There are a lot more regulations now, so many of the things for sale here probably wouldn't be sold in this form in a modern pharmacy. You would have to go talk to the pharmacist and see if they could make it for you now. Or that a pharmacist wouldn't even sell you today because they have dangerous compounds in them that maybe they just didn't realize at the time. But they also did some things that maybe we would never sell today, like asthma cigarettes that were supposed to help people with asthma. Smoking and asthma really don't go well together, so that's not something that would be for sale today. These are loose things that you could buy if you needed a bulk for something you're making at home, or perhaps the pharmacist is going to compound something for you. But these are all kinds of herbs and things that you could buy in bulk. A lot of these things, a good many of them, are actually from the mountains of North Carolina, like ginseng and stuff like that, that are much more rare, but in the 20s you could have found much more easily. This is a typical kind of candy counter that you might have seen in a 20s drugstore. There's a lot of similar candy for sale downstairs in our museum shop right now. It probably would have been a little fuller at the time because there were a lot of different candies that we don't have right here. But it gives you a flavor, sort of what's available. And these little glass things are neat because they would have been filled with various candies. And that would be like a gift you would give a kid, and it would be in the shape of a dog or a boot or whatever, but it would have little candies inside. And those, you can still buy those today. Different, probably not made out of glass, but. So behind me here is a magazine rack. These are real magazines, but we've reproduced them so you could get kind of a flavor of what the 20s magazines might look like and how it's not that different from today. So here we have various toys and games. We're just trying to show you how much was available at that time and all the different types of things like dolls, games, tea sets, and some other stuff like toasters. And when you look at these toasters, you think that's it could almost be dangerous because the heating element's right there on the outside. So, you know, you'd have to be pretty careful. So this is one of my favorite parts of the drugstore. It's our soda fountain. You might notice there's a big K up there. This was John C. Brantley's pharmacy originally. He purchased it before that from Mr. King, and that's why it's got a big K up there. But a soda fountain is where you would go to buy ice cream, different kinds of soda drinks, things that like carbonated drinks, which were kind of seen as a tonic. Pepsi Cola, which originated in New Bern in the 1890s, that was at first seen as a tonic. It wasn't seen as like, you know, a syrupy sweet drink for fun. It was more of like, this could be helpful to you. And then all the other competitors, there were so many other sodas that they sold. Most pharmacies liked soda fountains because soda fountains were often gathering places for different groups. You might have, you know, groups of people that meet or just get together to talk and chat and have something cool to drink. And before they even had refrigeration, they were using ice, big blocks of ice for ice cream, and, you know, so it would have been a big deal where you go get something cold, especially on a hot day. This is an authentic cash register. Cash registers were meant to last, and this one still works. The equipment behind here is real, but it wasn't used in Raleigh. It's a recreation. But the things in the back are all real, were used here. So this is a marble counter, and we actually physically moved it from another place, and it is a difficult thing to put back together. But we think it looks pretty good now. It's very durable. So this is another place people might gather to socialize and, you know, have a soda. It's an ice cream table, and the way it works is these seats pull out, so you can seat up to 6 people around this little small table. And there might be 2 or 3 of these around in a pharmacy. And they're nice because the pharmacist could put materials in there that they're selling, and it's kind of like, you know, advertising, you're having your beverage. It's just a nice little spot to gather. And we put jewelry here, but it could be any type of merchandise you wanted to put. They were very super clever about how they would orient their stores to entice you to, oh, I came for ice cream, but maybe I should buy this for a gift, or, you know, oh yeah, I need some medicine or whatever. So it was, you know, and that still happens today. So nothing's really changed. So in this case, we have a whole lot of different sets, and they're made out of celluloid, which was a very early plastic. So it's interesting that plastic things now aren't seen as being high-end, but in those days, this was, because it's new, it's fresh, it's plastic, it's celluloid. So here we have a recreated pharmacist workroom. Let me take you inside. This is the pharmacist workroom, and in this space, the pharmacist would have done the work of compounding, preparing orders, getting ready for the customers. So they want a space that's contained and doesn't have all the chemicals out on the floor. This is where the pharmacist would do compounding and also making things for prescriptions. And at that time, the doctor would write up a prescription, you'd go to a pharmacist, just like today. So we set this display up as a working pharmacist counter. So you can see just kind of like if a pharmacist stepped away for a few minutes. Thank you for joining me on this brief tour of the pharmacy at the North Carolina Museum of History.